Well, good morning and welcome. Thank you all for coming today. I appreciate it. So my focus is going to be more on looking at what it's going to start the system, what components we need to get in place. And for our growers, it's creating a Growsite administrator. So we'll go into that and we'll talk more about some of the specific requirements of that role, some of the requirements if you do not follow the law that is stated, but again, be happy to answer questions at the end as we go along. So thank you. So the goals of the training, we're going to talk a little bit about the changes that were made during this last legislative session, since it does change the grow sites that need to be reporting. Go make sure that growers understand which tracking system they are to use. We have the cannabis tracking system, we have our Oregon medical marijuana online system, and then there are some growers that are exempt. So trying to clarify that. As changes, there's been lots of changes. We also want to make sure that you complete the required steps that you need to be able to get into the tracking system, that you understand the importance of tracking, if it's monthly or if it is in the cannabis tracking system, and the consequences if tracking is not completed. We're going to go over the changes in the requirements of who needs to report, and again talk about the different systems that we have, how to designate a Growsite administrator, and what happens if a Growsite administrator is set up in the system but not activated, or if a Growsite administrator does not actually do the tracking in the CTS system, and if the requirement is to use our monthly tracking if that is not done. This in the 2018 legislative sessions, Senate Bill 1544 was passed, and it did make modifications to who needs to track. So before that happened, if you were at a grow site that you had 12 or less plants, if you were a patient there, you did not track. But if you were growing at that location, you weren't the patient, you did need to track. It was somewhat confusing. In Senate Bill 1544, it modified it. In the most simplest terms that you can get to with that is that if you are at a location that has 3 or more patients at it, you need to use the tracking system. So basically then you would be at a site that has more than 12 plants. It can be any range. You could have 3 growers, each with 1 patient. You could have 1 grower with 3 patients, whatever that combination. So that's why we went with, this is the simplest terms. The hardest part of this was that the bill, modification of the bill is effective in the same time frame. Usually there's a longer time frame when a bill is in effect. So this means that those that were in the old system compared to those that are coming now, both cases you must use this tracking system by July 1. So even though the 1544 is not effective until 7/1, it's important, you have to be in the system and you have to be using the tracking. So we're trying to make sure everybody understands that. So there are 3 systems that we have. The newest is the cannabis tracking system. This is the new requirement. So if you're at a grow site and you have 3 or more patients registered at that site, you are required to use the cannabis tracking system. It is administered by OLCC, and the vendor for that is Metric. And I want to call that out to you because we do refer to this as the cannabis tracking system a lot in the presentations or discussions, but the vendor itself is Metric. You'll receive communication from Metric. We just want to make sure everybody's aware that those go together. So our monthly tracking is still required for some. So if you are, first of all, you have to be at a grow site with 2 or fewer patients, plus you are designated to grow for someone other than yourself. You are growing for yourself at your own residence, but you're transferring product to either a medical dispensary or a medical processing site. You're a patient growing for yourself, but you're not growing at your own residence. Or the other is if you had applied to be licensed under OLCC and you had submitted that application before the January 1 due date was one of the requests that we had sent out, and you have a pending application to be licensed under OLCC, we do not want you to set up the cannabis tracking with us. We want only two reasons. You don't need to pay it twice. You don't want to pay that fee twice. But more importantly, Metric would not want two accounts set up. So what you would need to do in that manner is you would continue reporting monthly. And I can't stress that it is important to continue reporting monthly so that you remain compliant. So, okay. There is a population of our growers that are exempt from any tracking at all. And so all of this must be true to be exempt from tracking. So you are a patient, you're growing for yourself and at your residence, and there are no more than 12 mature plants or 24 immature plants, and you're not transferring. So you're just growing for yourself. There's no product going into commerce at all. So that population does not need to use either the monthly tracking nor the CTS tracking. So when we figured out, why do we have a Growsite administrator? So when the law came into effect and we were learning that our growers were going to need to begin tracking product in the OLCC system, the initial thought and requirement was that every grower was going to need to pay the cannabis fee, the tracking fee. We worked with OLCC, we worked with the Metric vendor, and we had focus groups that we brought growers and some growers who were on both the recreational and the medical side to get their opinion on how can we do this, try to make it more cost effective for our growers and comply. So what we came up with was a Growsite administrator. We have this one person who then is responsible for the Growsite. We could then have the fee be at the Growsite level rather than every grower paying that fee. What that means is that person is obviously responsible for the site, they're responsible for all the information that goes into the system, and they're the person that contacts the vendor if there's a question. One of the trade-offs to having that is that it needed to be a 1-to-1 ratio where only one person was contacting for help or needing assistance rather than maybe a Growsite that had 9 people. So that was why we now have this Growsite administrator. What this allows us to do, so our role, OHA's role, is to basically get the data over into OLCC and then over to the vendor. So that's really our role in this. And by having this Growsite administrator role, we're able to then gather all the data we need for that Growsite administrator, and then we push that data over, and then OLCC and the vendor take care of the credentialing and different steps. So that's how this came up. So the reason that we are asking that the Growsite administrator be set up by May 31st, I know that sounds confusing since the actual target date of tracking is July 1, because this is just the first step, is to move you over. We're doing it electronically. We are putting in as much information in the data fields that we can that will automate some of the credentialing so that it helps to speed that process up. But right now we have about 2,100 Growsites, and to assist the vendor in getting everybody into the system and able to track and ready to go by July 1, the data has to get over. And so the May 31st timeline allows that information to be sent over. What we are going to be doing is our target is May 15th to have that be the first time we push data over to the vendor, and then nightly thereafter. So just as people are filling it out, becoming the Growsite administrator, we will be sending that data over starting mid-month. And then that will allow them time to get credentialed. It allow you time to get everything set up on the CTS tracking side that you need to do. So requirements, you need to have an account set up in our monthly tracking system. That's how you become a Growsite administrator. I'm going to walk through the entire process today. It may be repetitive if you already have an account set up, but we have found that not everyone who is to be using our monthly tracking is doing it. So we're going to go through the first steps of what you need to do to get connected to your patients as a grower in our system, and then we'll go into the steps of setting up the Growsite administrator itself. So you have to be a grower at that Growsite. That's the number one criteria, is that you have to be at that location. You will complete the request. You must agree to be responsible for all of the information and to comply with all the rules that either the Oregon Health Authority or the Oregon Liquor Control Commission have set in place regarding the cannabis tracking. And then you will be the ones paying the tracking fee. How you determine to split those costs amongst the Growsite, that's your choice, or however you want to do that. But that's a component of getting this taken care of all at the same time. So the first thing is you would go to this link, which is the OMMPsystem.oregon.gov, and that brings you to our sign-in. At this point, if, let's say, and this is something that does happen frequently for our growers, is they've forgotten their passwords. We do have two different ways that you can reset your password yourself. So there's reset your password here, or under help, there's also reset your password. So this is the sign-in area. And the very first step to becoming a grower, or actually even if you wanted to complete your patient online system and apply for a card online, you would use this link. But this becomes kind of your sign-in, your login. Your login is going to be connected to your email. So very important to make sure your email is one that you will always continue to use. But it will end up being something similar to if you were at a financial institution and you have a login to do online banking, and I can do a loan, or I can pay my bill, and I can, it's the same type of thing. You can navigate through any of these items. We're going to concentrate on creating a new account, and we're going to concentrate on the grower. So this is where you are going to begin the login process. You're going to create your account. You put your first name, last name. Again, this email will be used for both our system, and this is the information that will be pushed over to the CTS tracking system. So it's very important that it is one that you have good access to. And then you'll create your password. There's criteria for setting your password, and making sure you're not a robot. You just click that and do next. You'll get an email sent to that email account that you set up. It's a verification, and that way we validated the email that it is yours to access. It'll come from us. This link expires in 24 hours, so it's very important that again, that you have an email that you have easy access to, and you confirm that within that 24-hour time frame. If you do not do that, you'll have to contact the program. So that it would take more of your time. You'll get the email. It will come from OMMP no reply. So if for some reason it doesn't show up in a few hours after you had done that, check to see if it could be in your junk mail. If you don't get it, contact us. But you should get an email from us. It has, it says please click here. You click the link, and what it does is it just says your email's confirmed. Then it offers right here the sign-in, which will bring you right back into the login screen. At the login screen, you will sign in. You put in your email and the password you just created. Again, highlighting here the ability you can reset your password yourself. If you got this, that means you didn't check the link within 24 hours, and so it expired. And it has our email address right here to contact us, so that's if you need that. So what you're going to do now, so you've logged in and you've created your login, and it brings you back to this page where it's like I can do 3 different things. I could register as a patient or renew, if that happened to be it. I could apply to be a processor, or I can connect to my grower. And that's what we're going to do now, is we're going to connect to the grower information. So you just click that. You need to have information accessible to do this. If you already have your grower card, you'll have a grower ID number or account card number. If not, if you have a letter that came from us, so if you are just being assigned as a new grower, you'll get a letter that says, you know, you've been assigned to be a grower for this patient. You have 14 days to pay and go online and begin reporting, and it'll have the registration number on the letter. So first thing that you'll want to do here, and it's either from the letter or on your card, is you put your name in exactly as it is. So if you have a junior or a senior, make sure you put that on there. Do not put any periods, but just put your name exactly how it is, either addressed on the letter or on the card. And then you will put government ID. It's whatever ID was given when the patient created the account. So most people, that's their driver's license number. Some people do use passports. So you just need to know what that ID was that you were given at that, or gave at that time. And then you'll either enter your grower ID or you'll enter your registration number. And if you were a person who grew for more than one patient, you only have to connect with one of them, and then the system behind it will connect you to everybody. So you only have to do this once too. This is like a one-time thing to get in. You'll click next. You'll get this email where it will list out the grower card. So this would be your card number, and then it would list the patient. And it may list up to 4 people. You could be growing for up to 4 people. So it could list them all. And it's basically saying, confirm that these are the people that you're growing for. And then you hit submit, and it brings you back into the system. That is what it takes to get signed up in the OMMOS system. So now what we're going to move on to is setting you up as a Growsite administrator. Same process. You'll sign in. Your account's set up. You just sign in as you normally would. And then it'll bring you so that you log in with your email and your password, and it will bring you to the grower page. There's a lot of language right here. It is talking more, what we tried to do when we were creating this Growsite administrator and trying to inform people in as many ways that we could of the changes that were happening and the major changes. I mean, there's some very, very big changes coming to our growers. We've added this language on this page. So, you know, it says that the growers are required to track. If you're required to track using the CTS system, you must designate a grower at the site to be the Growsite administrator. You need to do that through this account. It began May 1st that you can do that, and we would like to have the Growsite administrator set up by May 31st so that information gets over to the vendor. That person is responsible for paying the $480 fee. Tracking starts July 1. And it also has some of the legalities that have been added. You know, statute now states if you are required to do this tracking and you do not begin doing this by the July 1st, then Oregon Health Authority may have to revoke cards and the Growsite. So there are some definite severe consequences if we do not follow these procedures. And that would affect the Growsite and the growers that are at that location. So we're really trying to make sure we get the word out to people in as many different ways that we possibly can. So that is on that page. On this page, you'll see at the top, it'll show that there is, this grower has 1 card in this example. Down here, it will show you who, your grower card. It'll show you your patient's name and all information about that patient. At the top, the next tab is your inventory, where you're supposed to be doing your monthly inventory and tracking, and your transfers, your monthly transfers. I'm just going to make a comment that transfers and inventory, even if you have no product, has to be done monthly. And we actually have a checkbox. All you have to do is check a box once a month that says I have no inventory to report, I have no transfers to report. You've complied with your monthly transfer and inventory tracking. So very important. That has to be done on a monthly basis. Then over here is Growsite Administrator, and in this example it shows 0 right here. This is the tab we're going to go to talk about how to become a Growsite Administrator. That's the new feature that was just created for this. Again, we've added language to kind of walk through exactly what I'm saying. So, you know, for some people, it works to just look at that page and you get the answers. We talk about what each of the columns are, and we explain how you go about setting the becoming the Growsite Administrator in that pink area. The main things on this to look at is you'll always see that your email is here. That you can always verify that's you and that you're in the right one. The system determines the type of tracking. So behind the scenes, based on the data that the patients have provided, will determine the type of tracking. So in this situation, this person has to be at a location that has at least 3 people growing at it. It could show OMMOS or it could show NA or none, which none would be your exempt. But in this situation and in the situations for you, it's probably going to show the CTS tracking. If it showed OMMOS, you wouldn't be able to pay. That Pay Now button won't show up. So we have had people who thought, you know, there's a lot of confusion out and thought that they had to pay that $480, and it's only if you are required to. So it won't allow you to pay that. As patients change their growers, that could change. So even though it says CTS Now, if a patient if you quit growing for one of your patients, as an example, you may end up going to an OMMOS, or you could be the monthly tracking and add a patient, which then the system behind the scenes is going to recalculate you to say you need to use CTS. So that is always going to be somewhat fluid, just based on the patient applications and the way that the program is set up. You'll notice that it says name, and there's nothing here, and it has a payment needed. This next slide is going to, next few slides, it's just going to talk a little bit about the icon for each of these areas, and then it would be, after that, then it would be as though I have clicked the payment now, and then it takes you to the answers. What we're trying to show you just is the 3 different systems. So our systems are either the Cannabis Tracking System, the Oregon Medical Marijuana Online System, or none, meaning no reporting required. The name is only going to be populated when the Growsite Administrator has been determined. So the name would be populated in that time. This is obviously the Growsite. This is really important for some of our growers who grow at more than one Growsite. So, you know, both of those locations will show up on your grower tab. And it's really important to look at that Growsite, and there's some other checks and balances in here to make sure you're paying for the right site, because it's very possible that you may be the administrator for one and you may be the Growsite Administrator for another one. And so you want to make sure you pay for yours and you pay for yours. So those are the checks and balances. And the last payment date will be once that cannabis tracking fee has been paid. That is an annual fee, and it's an annual fee based on now, not on your patient registrations. All of our, and as you know, your registrations with your patients are throughout the year. This fee is an annual basis, and it's at the Growsite level. So it's one time for that Growsite. The tracking fee will show here. Once it's been paid and reconciled, it'll show as NA. When we get up closer to a renewal time, so, you know, let's say a year from now, about 45 days out, that button will show back up again and allow you to pay again, but it won't be available to be paid until that time. So now we're going to say that I just clicked that payment needed button, and it brings me to this page. And what we need you to complete at this point is there's select one, and this is asking you if you have an indoor grow, an outdoor grow, or mixed. And determining your indoor-outdoor has to do with the lighting. It's the same as OLCC has. So if you're using artificial lighting, then it is considered an indoor grow. If you use natural lighting, then you're an outdoor grow. Next, you will answer questions here. You need to read these and check all of the boxes. The questions are, I have read and I will comply with all the rules under the revised statutes. So you're reading the OAR or the ORS having to do with the Growsite administrator. I will read and comply with the Cannabis Tracking System reporting requirements that are both in the Oregon Health Authority's rules and in OLCC's rules. I will cooperate with the Oregon Health Authority and the Commission regarding an investigation or an inspection related to me or the Growsite for which I am an administrator of. And I authorize OHA to provide my name and my contact information to all the growers at that Growsite. Those are part of the requirements. And if I fail to comply with those laws, my registration may be revoked. So you are agreeing that you're taking the responsibility for this role and that you will be the one that we contact to work with. Other items then on here is you'll type your name in. That's considered a legal binding electronic signature. And you put your phone number. This is your little check and balance before you push the next. It will show your name, your card number, and the Growsite. So this is where you would have that double check to make sure you were paying if you were at a site that had more than one Growsite listed on your application. Once you are verified that information, you click this pay button. This is going to take you to our vendor for payment. You basically are going to go through and fill out your name and address, city, state, zip, and your email again, because all communication will come back to your email account. You click next. It gives you an opportunity to verify that the information that you have entered is accurate. You can edit this if you did make a mistake. You'll enter your credit card information and the name on the card, again, very important, and then verify that information, click next. You get one more time to just verify it to make sure it's all right. You can edit. And again, making sure we're not robots, and you can submit your payment. You'll get an email that says the payment has been submitted. You'll get an email from us that will say your payment has been, your application has been received and it's under review. And then we will then send you an email that says you have been named the Growsite administrator for this location and you have the responsibilities thereof. And then when you go back in after that, it'll show up in your account. You will also get an email on the payment itself, and this is coming from the vendor. I like to point this out again to make sure you're aware of where that payment's coming from. Another thing that's really important is to know that this is what's going to show up on your credit card statement is OHA, PhD fee, CTS, just to make sure sometimes people get confused as to what is this, what's this for? That's where it's coming from. That's how it's marked on the actual transaction. And you'll get the email from us. So then you'll come back in after you get that email that says, you have been designated. That will come from mmg.online. That will be from us that says you've been selected as the Growsite administrator. Up here, it will now show a 1. It shows that there's been a Growsite administrator selected. It will have the name of the Growsite administrator, and it will no longer have an ability to pay. Couple things that are really important is that it does take up to 24 to 48 hours for a payment to reconcile. Don't pay again. We have people that do that. You think, oh my goodness, it must not have gone through. You got a receipt, so you know that you had made your payment, but it can take up to 2 days for that to reconcile. That's when we will be then doing our work and then sending that out to you. So it will show at that time. If there are more people that let's say, we really are asking that at the Growsite, you talk amongst yourselves if you're at a location that has more people, and you determine who that Growsite administrator should be, and that person apply. If we have 2 people that apply, then the person who it goes through the process first and the payment reconciles, and we then are looking at that person to determine, to make the decision if they'll be the Growsite administrator or not. We won't look at another one. So it does come across as first come, first serve as far as that part. So it is very, very advantageous for you to talk to the other people at the Growsite and make that decision beforehand. If we've kind of talked a little bit about what happens if you don't do this. So again, statute is written very clearly, and it is effective for our monthly reporters and the cannabis tracking system reporters, that if you do not follow and do the reporting that is required, we are not to renew your applications. We are to go to a revocation or a civil penalty. So there are some very strong consequences that have been written into legislation that we have to implement. So again, very important. We are going to work to make sure, especially when you're getting set up in the system, we have done our part, and you've signed up to be the Growsite administrator. That information will then go over to the vendor. You'll end up getting an email from them that says, "Welcome to Metric." You'll have 10 days of which you need to finish the credentialing process. There's 2 different 10-day time frames. The very first 10-day time frame is from that initial email you received that says welcome. You need to go in and finish doing the credentialing. Again, we've sent over a lot of information, or we will be sending over information on as your name and the address and all of that, but there's still steps you'll have to do to finish that. So you have 10 days to do that. Then you'll have 10 days after that. Once OLCC has finalized it and you're in their system, you'll have 10 days to order tags and to get your information in the system. That will be covered later, but it's just really important to know there are 2 different 10-day segments that you're responsible for doing. But the first one is getting that information credentialed. So this also, again, is for our monthly reporters. Compliance with reporting. It's at a monthly aggregate. It's a much different system than the CTS, but it is required monthly. And if it doesn't happen and it's required to after July 1, the same process will be followed. We have been instructed that we cannot renew, or there's civil penalties, or we move to revoke. So those again are very serious changes. So we are sending the data over. They begin the process. This is the May 31st deadline. That's again our goal, to try to get everybody in the system. And then basically what we're saying is, the GSA is the way to get you over to the system. One thing that's really important to know is that when you are in the cannabis tracking system, you can assign others to help you to do that tracking. So if you have another grower that would like to assist you at that site, you can do that. And again, they will go over that. So just because you've been assigned the Growsite administrator doesn't mean you can't have help. You're still the one responsible. You're still the one that would contact if there's an error. You're the one that would need to contact the vendor for assistance, not the other people that you've signed up. So, but you can get help to do the tracking. And then after you've received the welcome to Metric, that means you've done the first credentialing. You'll finish that process, and then you have 10 days to order your tags and do your next steps. This is not, I don't know if you picked up training, the training packet, but this top one is not in here. I highly recommend that you write this down. When we printed this, we didn't have this information. Metric actually has pretty extensive training set up. So it's www.metric.com/Oregon. Once you're credentialed in their system, you can sign up to take their full classes. I cannot stress the importance of taking the training. It's going to be very, very important, and probably a requirement. If you're going to call for help, one of the first questions they're going to ask is, did you take the training? Because the training will go through the whole process for you as well. But so again, it's something you could get done once you're credentialed and you're in. You could get that done and be ready by 7/1. On OLCC's website, under the OLCC section, there's in this link, this is the cannabis tracking system, there's a section that's OLCC and there's a section that's OHA. Currently, most of the training information is under the OLCC, but it's the same training. If you go down to their, I think it's additional resources, if you scroll down, they have videos, so there's YouTube links that you can watch. It's broken up into small segments. It's very, very helpful. They have user guides there to assist you with the training as well. So if you have any questions having to do with your Growsite administrator, setting it up, you can't get in, if the steps don't work, any of those things, those come to OHA. You can either call the phone number, it's open from Monday through Friday from 12 to 4, or you can email, and we'll gladly help with any of those questions that we can answer or help you with. We do have a couple links here. This just takes you to our website, and this is our rules. We have sent out a lot of communication. We started out with kind of a broad bulletins that we sent to people, and then we've targeted that down to the specific people that need to use the tracking system and say, you're listed at this site. We're trying to do outreach as much as we can. We are holding, along with the OLCC joint group meetings that we're doing, we are going out to, pretty much we'll be finished with our part only the following week, trying to make sure we've told everybody about this part so we get you set up as the Growsite administrator, because that's step one. And then try to answer questions that we possibly can for you. And then we're going to over communicate on emails. So we've been doing email blasts, and we will continue to do that, and we will err on the part of over communicating to make sure that we're giving you as much information about this as we possibly can. So, okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.